We love GRTV.
We love GRTV. We love GRTV.
We love GRTV.
Welcome to We Love GRTV, where dope people make dope connections. I'm Lorenz, your host, and this is my man Jonathan. Today we're going to talk about your vodka company and your come up at Grand Rapids. So introduce yourself for me,
Appreciate
please.
it. Well, I'm Jonathan Jelks, a lifelong Grand Rapidian. Love the city. Grew up in the southeast side of the city, the Uptown neighborhood, as they call it now, right there in Sherman and Benjamin.
Yeah.
Just love my community, man. I think Grand Rapids is humbly one of the greatest cities in the world. There's so much potential here. There's so much to be inspired by, and there's some things that need to come into fruition in order for the city to become world class, if you know what I mean. Like, we have a lot of great attributes, there's a ton of potential, but there are things that are still holding us back, and so there's great opportunity to grow. But the thing I always say about Grand Rapids is the community, it's for creators, it's for builders. If you want everything to be laid out, you know, as an African American entrepreneur, or, you know, somebody who's seeking the culture in that kind of way, then going to Atlanta was a great thing for you. You know what I mean? Moving maybe to Chocolate City, to Washington, D.C. is a great thing, because, you know, the culture is robust and everybody is doing things, and you don't have to build what you want to see. In Grand Rapids, you literally have to be willing to put in the blood, sweat, and tears and create what you want to see. If you're that type of person, regardless of your background, then this is a great community for you.
So you believe this is one of the up and coming cities?
Yeah, for sure. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the country. It's one of the more prolific cities in the Midwest region. When you look at Michigan, the state of Michigan, and you look at the Midwest, a lot of our industry, you know, was based on manufacturing, right? They call this the Rust Belt, and it's because here in Grand Rapids we make furniture. Over there in Detroit they make cars. Michigan is a maker state, and a lot of the Midwest is like that. It's either agriculture or you're making things. It's why so many people migrated from down south up to Michigan, you know, years ago, you know, and at the turn of the century, they came up to work in industry, to work in factories, to be able to be more gainfully employed than the agricultural things that they were doing down south. And Grand Rapids has been one of the cities that has been able to overcome deindustrialization. So in the 70s and the 80s, when, you know, Detroit wasn't making as many cars or whatever, and they had heavy competition from overseas, when Grand Rapids wasn't making as much furniture, you know, the big dogs around here, they really invested in the city so that it wouldn't be desolate once industry changed. And what you can see in a lot of Michigan cities, right? You go to Flint right now, you know, people evaluate the problems, and they see, you know, some of the difficulties and the challenges that they're working really hard to overcome. I love Flint. It's a real good working community, but they're still dealing with the effects of deindustrialization. At the heart of their problem is the fact that they don't have as many jobs as they used to have. The city was vibrant when there were a whole bunch of manufacturing jobs. Now that manufacturing is down, the city hasn't recovered. Detroit right now is just recovering from the big three losing market share, the big three not being able to produce as many cars as they were doing in the 1950s, when Detroit was clearly probably the greatest, most American city, you know what I mean, on the planet. You know, it was the city to go to.
You hear that story a lot.
1950s, 1960s. So in Grand Rapids, we've diversified, you know, our industry, right? It's no longer just manufacturing. We're into advanced manufacturing now. We're also known for tech now. We're also known for medical miles. So everything from Spectrum Health to St. Mary's to Michigan State now having their medical school here. We're like one of the biggest research communities in the country. You know, you come here, get your heart checked, get your cancer addressed, because we have top-notch healthcare. We're really prominent in the healthcare sector. And so that has made Grand Rapids a very strong community. The problem with it is that a lot of the prosperity that's been built by the new industries, whether it's the tech or the healthcare and medical mile, is that a lot of people of color, people who are not a part of, you know, I mean, certain groups haven't been able to benefit from it. And that's pretty much been my perspective growing up.
Why haven't we benefited from it? People of color,
man.
minority, why not?
You know, I think education is a big part of it, but I think that Grand Rapids is a city of silos. So
City of Silo.
Yeah, man. If you operate in one space, oftentimes you don't connect with people from other sectors. And I think because it's such a we still have such a working class ethos and mentality.
Yeah.
People haven't yet caught on to or gravitated to where the money has been made in the last 20, 25 years. A lot of people of color and a lot of working class people, period, of all backgrounds, all ethnicities, we're waiting for a resurgence in that manufacturing industry, and that's never coming back. We're in the age of technology now. You know, robots are doing the manufacturing.
Right.
You know, that makes things more efficient. They don't take bathroom breaks, right?
Right.
So, you know, you can work that machine, and now the job is for you to be an engineer, you know, and to create the technology or do the coding, you know what I mean, for that robot or for that automated system that's going on. So people have been looking to be gainfully employed in industry, but I think that, you know, the knowledge about what these new industries are that dominate the Grand Rapids economy, what those anchors are, they haven't been in the know. You know, that's one part of it. The other part of it is just systemic racism, straight up. You know, the city has a long history of systemic racism. My dad wrote a book about the history of Grand Rapids called African Americans in the Furniture City.
Okay.
The struggle for civil rights in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And then that was followed by a book by a professor named Todd Robinson, who wrote A City Within a City, which has become very popularized in the last like 8 or so years.
Okay.
So my dad's book covers a certain history of, you know, the black community here in Grand Rapids and what, you know, the people who came before us, who laid the foundation, what they had to go through in order for us to have these opportunities, do stuff like this, have these platforms. And then Todd's book follows it up and brings it into a more modern era. I think Todd's book maybe covers from 1960 to maybe 1980 or something like that. Still before I was born, but those books really lay out some of the difficulties that communities of color have had in a city like Grand Rapids.
So what are the biggest changes you've seen in Grand Rapids from when you grew up to now?
I think, you know, more welcoming. You know, I remember, you know, going into downtown and really never seeing too many people of color at all. You know, like, it's not great, but, you know, I mean, things have changed tremendously. You know, we've seen some evolution in the fact that, you know, being overtly racist isn't cool anymore. Being only to yourself limits how much a city can grow. Right. You know, so the opportunities are much more abundant. You know, I think back in the day, man, being a person of color, you would automatically get ruled out for, you know, certain opportunities. And I think the attitudes have been changing because, you know, we've had some great activists who have come through the city who have really laid down a foundation and have challenged systems at every turn. You know, I think of people who are gone now. Judge Logan was somebody who I always, you know, admired. He's deceased now. God bless him.
Judge Logan. I never heard of Judge Logan.
Judge Logan. Yep. He was a judge here in town and did a lot in the legal community and was a pioneer. I think of Ingrid Scott Weekly. She's dead and gone now too, but was at the city of Grand Rapids for a long time in the diversity department. She headed that department up, and so some of the changes you see at the city of Grand Rapids level at City Hall, you know, with the mayor and the city manager, she instituted some of those things. There's been people who've been working in all these different sectors, even Grand Valley. Dean Don Williams is a name that you should know, and all young people should know. Dean Don
Williams.
Yep, he was the
Only
dean.
know Grand Valley for partying. So
yeah, there you go.
Don Williams.
Well, Grand Valley is a great party school, but Dean Williams, you know, is still living, and he's a giant among giants. He definitely created some diversity and inclusion programs at Grand Valley, by which you see a lot of talent, people of color coming in from other cities, Detroit, Chicago, going to Grand Valley now. Yeah. And then staying in Grand Rapids, the city of Grand Rapids, retaining people from other places. Okay, so kind of
importing people in.
100%, and then them contributing to the ecosystem. And so there's so many to name like that, people that have been an influence and, you know, have done their thing to create the path and the trajectory by which, you know, we can do our thing now. But there's been a lot of work that's gone into, you know, kind of making Grand Rapids a more welcoming place, making Grand Rapids a more inclusive place. We're not there yet, but we're getting there.
How much further we got to go?
Well, if we want to be world class, we have to go way further.
Okay.
You know, me as a serial entrepreneur, so my new bar that'll be opening up in about 6 weeks called Ambiance Kitchen and Lounge downtown. Okay. And the fact that we're the only African American liquor licensed entity in downtown Grand Rapids, in my opinion, is a travesty. You know, there should be more liquor license holders who are Black and Latinx in downtown Grand Rapids and other ethnicities as well. Any city that, you know, I mean, I want to visit and go spend my money in, whether it's Miami or LA or New York City, it boasts robust cultural diversity. Okay. In Grand Rapids, right now, it's still too cookie cutter. You know, it looks the same, it feels the same, it's the same in crowds and the same people who pretty much dominate in business and then also dominate in the cultural spaces. And so the change has to happen through a whole bunch of different ways, man. One, we need our financial institutions to really, you know, take a stand. You know, after George Floyd, we saw a lot of fake action and we saw some real action, but
fake action, real action. Talk about that.
Well, you know, fake action is we're gonna do some lip service and we're gonna say that we're gonna contribute to, you know, a fund or, you know, do this initiative to boost minority involvement and participation. But it's really just a smoke and mirror, you know. I mean, they're not really about the change. They're really about being a part of the moment and making sure they protect, you know, their backsides, as opposed to doing real work, you know what I mean, and figuring out how can I partner and be effective. And so with banks and financial institutions, we need to see them lending money to minority entrepreneurs. That is something that absolutely has to change ASAP. The fact that you can go out probably right now and get financing for a Range Rover, and I don't know what you can afford, but they'll give you that, you know, and that may be $85,000 for a new one or something. But you can't get $30,000 if you have a juice bar that you're trying to open up. That's the type of stuff that's ingrained in Grand Rapids culture that we have to address. And so a lot of my experience, and that's where I know your mom from, you know, is being active. You know, when I got started in trying to address the issues in Grand Rapids, it was from the perspective of, you know, I see the lack of opportunity in the neighborhood that I grew up in. Okay. And how do I change that? What are the strategies? How can I be solutions oriented about being a catalyst for change? And so as a grown man now, as a guy in my 30s, I now know, you know, that
what was the first step you took to being that catalyst?
Yeah, as they say, we jumped off the porch pretty early. There was a lot of violence in the neighborhood, and I just think the influence of coming from the community where both my parents went to the University of Michigan, but at the time, the neighborhood we were raised in, that was considered the hood. I mean, you know, grew up in the 90s off of the Wealthy Boys era and all that kind of stuff. You know?
I ain't really from here. I'm back and forth from here. But I heard about it.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, you have lineage here. So it was a lot going on. I mean, it's like the same in all communities, man. The crack epidemic and the drug wars, all that stuff was going on here in Grand Rapids, and it was pervasive. And so, you know, I just remember friends of mine, you know, pulling up in cars, 13, 14 years old, you know what I mean? And obviously those proceeds weren't coming from the income in their house, you know? People were really trying to figure out how best to feed their family. And again, it was like the perfect storm, because you have that deindustrialization thing I was talking about, right? Where you lost a whole bunch of manufacturing jobs, and then you had a generation that was coming up that was really go-getters, and they didn't have any interest in, you know, slaving away at some factory or for, you know, at a low level in a service job, you know, for bosses that didn't understand where they were coming from. And so it's the generation that birthed hip hop. And why was hip hop so dynamic? Because it was speaking the truth about things that were going on in the streets. And what was going on in the streets was, you know, the crack epidemic, the drug wars and stuff. So me being from the neighborhood, but then also being exposed to all other kinds of things. You know, my mom is a lawyer and my dad is a professor. And so we were taking trips to Europe and, you know, going to different conventions around the country and, you know, going to Morehouse. Yeah, we had exposure. And so that exposure allowed for me to have a different lens. And I knew, you know, that there were opportunities that other people who grew up with me weren't afforded. And I knew that a lot of that had to do with systems being in place. You know, there's a lot of things that are on your personal, right, that you have to take personal accountability and responsibility for in your life. But then there are other things that can put you in a bad position without you even being aware of it. And those usually are the systems, and the systems tend to adversely affect African Americans, Hispanic people, or Latinx, as a lot of people want to be referred to now. It affects us the wrong way. It puts us in a bind, in a position where we're running a race, but we've been held back. And so when you've been held back, you gravitate towards the options that are most accessible.
Right.
And those are things that I always just wanted to change. I always knew I need to take the privilege that I have, because as an African American with 2 parents in the household, my dad always there for me, my mom always on my head, to strive for excellence. I knew I had to take advantage of every opportunity and then give back. I needed to be a living testament to the change that I want to see. So that's what I've tried to do. And it started off with me being active with, different organizations like the Urban League and engaged with the NAACP.
Are you familiar with Spring GR?
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. 100%.
Can you tell me more about them? I actually met one of their guys.
I could tell you more about them, but I'm not their director or anything like that.
Okay.
But it's a great program that Atai runs, who's a friend of mine.
Yeah, we go to the same church.
Yeah, I know Atai from being around Calvin College or whatever. I went to Calvin College, and Atai is a good dude, man. And the program that they're running is introducing entrepreneurs to the ecosystem and helping them to get their business plans tight and get off the ground. You go through some courses, and you're able to pitch your different ideas and refine them. And there's never really been an entity like that before them. So I think highly of it, and I've seen a lot of successful entrepreneurs come from it. And I've seen some entrepreneurs be able to pivot. Yeah. You thought you wanted to be in business, you thought this was an idea, and out of that you learn, the idea wasn't that good, but I'm gonna gravitate and connect and do something else. I think that's equally important because entrepreneurship is a blood sport.
So, okay, what's the option if you don't want to be an entrepreneur? What's your other option?
I mean, being an entrepreneur, working in corporate America, working at companies. I mean, there's a glamorization of entrepreneurship.
Very true.
I'll tell you what.
Very true.
And this pandemic is good for us because I have a lot of different businesses. So the spirits company is just one of the businesses in the portfolio. But with our bar, Ambiance, which is the old rags to riches space, so a lot of people know that bar from back in the day in the 80s and 90s. That's a space that we acquired and built up. It's almost $1 million build out. Our landlords, they've been great. Our landlords, CWD, have been good with us, nice and flexible.
I see their signs everywhere.
Yeah,
CWD.
well, they own about 40% of downtown real estate, so they're heavy, and they did good things with us. But we still had to pay rent, throughout the pandemic.
Okay.
There's still things that we were accountable for, throughout the pandemic. And just when you have so much going on and so much uncertainty in the market, and you need to make sure that your business survives. Yeah. You paying, rent at a certain rate. You can imagine downtown real estate, it isn't cheap. That's the type of things that come with entrepreneurship. You have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared to go into your pocket and take from what you make somewhere else and reinvest that into this business in order to keep it afloat. It's a lot of responsibilities, taxes, overseeing people, managing people, making sure people are on their job. The buck stops with you when you're an entrepreneur. Yeah. Being an entrepreneur and or being a professional is great because you do your job and you go home. You have set hours. You may do some work outside of the office or, outside of your, vocation, but at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, you're clocking out. You can spend time with your family, you can go to the movies, you can do whatever. Me, regardless of family and all the other things that are going on in life, I still have to, make sure I answer those emails. I may have to make sure construction is being done on our new bar projects that we're doing downtown Muskegon. You know what I'm saying?
Is there a little bit of fun in the madness, though?
So
Don't make it
fun.
sound like it's stressful.
Oh, it's so much fun.
There's got to be a little fun.
No, there's stress, but there's so much fun. If you have an appetite for it, then it's the most amazing thing because you have the autonomy and the freedom to call the shots. And if you're okay with that, if you're okay with the pressure, because they say pressure busts pipes, or it makes diamonds.
Nah, pressure make diamonds.
You know what I'm saying? Depending on who you are and depending on what you have the appetite for. But my mom is a lawyer and she had a private practice early on in the 80s when her and my dad moved here to Grand Rapids. And private practice was cool, but she didn't enjoy the eat what you kill mentality as much. She knew she was a top tier lawyer in the state, but she preferred to utilize her vocation and work at the city of Grand Rapids. She became the human resource director, was overseeing like 15 different departments at the city. She has a crazy pension. She made great money, you know, and was able to make sure we were all educated. The stability that came with that move, I respect just as much, if not more, as some of us who are out here, you know, trying to get it out the mud.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
You answered like 10 of my questions.
Yeah, man. No, it's beautiful times to be in Grand Rapids, and I love this platform.
One thing I love that you said was, and another guy said this on the last show, you got to see the potential here, the value here. It's not, you don't have to fly to Atlanta, you don't have to fly to LA.
You don't.
So say someone is 21 years old, they get plopped down in Grand Rapids. Where's the first place you go?
Depends on what you want to do. What's the first place? First place I was going? Well, I was going to some places before I was 21 years old. You know, I don't want to put them out here on blast. You know, I had connections, but I would say that if you're an entrepreneur, the first place I would go is to Start Garden, and I would go connect with some of the business developers.
Start Garden? That's the second time I heard that today.
Yeah, Start Garden. So Start Garden is an entity that does work in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. It's been great for me and my business partner, Jamil Robinson, because we partner with them to do work, helping to accelerate businesses in the community. And what we like about Start Garden is that they have provided a really good network for us to kind of expand the people that we know, and then also, you know, the resources that we have at our disposal. And so I like Start Garden a lot. They're engaged in tech. They have a division of the entity that called Wakestream Ventures. Is a venture capital firm that invests in different businesses. So if you're looking, you have a startup idea, or you have a business already going that needs to be accelerated, they have an entity there, you know what I mean, that can help with that. But the most beautiful thing is that they have business professionals that can help you navigate where to go and how to get your business off the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
What made you choose a liquor license? It tastes really good, by the way. That party was dope.
My party,
that party was dope.
The Spirits Company came about because we have friends who knew that we're opening up this bar downtown Grand Rapids, and there's so much excitement and anticipation for our new spot, Ambiance, you know. And they were like, hey, you know, the biggest winery in the state of Michigan, St. Julian Winery over there in Paw Paw. We had some mutual friends. One of our friends works over there. One of our friends is a cultural creator and connected us with them. And there was mutual interest in doing a collaboration. And we said, well, as opposed to just doing kind of a standard little collaboration for ambiance with the spirits and whatnot, we're just going to start our own spirits company. You know, that's the entrepreneurship thing where
you're stacking on.
Yeah, you're thinking bigger. Like, yeah, we have our own bar, but you know, we also, you know, we know executives at Meyer. You know, we know the people at D&W. So it grew faster than what we thought. We rented new hotel Mertens over there at downtown Grand Rapids off of Commerce. And had the mayor come out, you know, who's a friend of ours, and we named the company Motu Viget, which is Latin for strength and community, strength and activity. It's on the city seal, so it's a part of the city of Grand Rapids. It's our official saying. And the reason why we did that is because, you know, like we're getting distribution for Motu Viget in Georgia now. We'll be in Atlanta this fall. Excited about that. But we want, you know, everywhere where our spirits are sold, we want them to know that this is a Michigan-made, Grand Rapids-based company, without being pretentious, without being so direct that it turns you off from buying the product. So we thought that sounded fly. We thought it had a ring to it, and we named our company Motu Viget Spirits. And now we have 3 products. We have the Motu Viget Brut, which is actually a champagne. We're allowed to call it a champagne because our winery is over 100 years old, and so there's a grandfather clause that if your bubbly comes from a vineyard that's over 100 years old, you can call it champagne. So when you go to Meyer, you'll see that it's a Motu Viget Brut champagne, which is great marketing for us.
Free game.
Yeah, free game. Yeah, get with it. We have our new wine that just came out, Eye Candy. She Saw, She Conquered. You know, just paying homage to lady visionaries, you know, women of all different ethnicities. We're really excited. It's a sweet still rosé. I think you had some at the event, the rooftop event we had the other day.
I had a couple.
And then we have Avani Supreme Vodka, which is made over here on the west side of Grand Rapids at Long Road Distillers. So, yep, we're in 260 stores. I think 270 now. Overall, we're in about 70 stores within Meyer's portfolio. And yeah, one of the fastest growing spirits companies in the state, how it's going right now. And it's great because we're doing, so we'll have 5 liquor license establishments before the end of the year. We have Ambiance Kitchen and Lounge downtown Grand Rapids. We're doing 2 bars downtown Muskegon. One is a bar restaurant concept. The other is a wine bar. It's all in the same building, but it's right across the street from the lake, from Heritage Landing. Just broken ground. We signed the deal for that in May. Just broken ground. Construction is going on. We should be done with it between Halloween and Thanksgiving. So we're really excited about bringing, you know, our stuff to the lakeshore. Our wine bar, I can say its name because it's already been announced, Motu Lakeshore Wine Bar. So we named the wine bar after our spirits.
That's dope.
So that's good branding, right?
Very good branding, yeah.
We're partners in a new coffee shop, bar, lounge concept in Alger
Seen that
Heights.
on Instagram.
Yep. Sip Coffee and Cocktails. Shout out to our partners, John France and Jonathan Farman. They own a hair salon over there in Alger Heights, and they bought the building and brought us in as partners on this coffee shop, bar, lounge concept. And so that's under construction now too. It's leaving the architecture phase, and that one should be done early October. So we're super excited. So a lot going on, man.
A lot going on.
And then we have GRUSA, the clothing and apparel company. That's been going for 6 years.
I've seen that on Instagram too.
Yeah.
I see the hats, but I never knew where to get one. Who started it?
Online right now, we were scouting out for our storefront. That's another thing that was affected by the pandemic. We would have been up and running by now. So yeah, GRUSA has been going for 6 years. Super excited about that. And then we're into real estate. We have some real estate.
How do you get started? Like, where do you first get your funds from? How do you start investing?
What
do you need
man.
to get really
That's
started?
where you need the job from. You know, you got to work.
That's the easy part. The job's the easy part.
You got to get a job. You have to work. You have to earn those checks. You have to put that money away, and then you have to build your credit up. You're going to need that credit when you go to the bank to get financing for whatever project you're trying to do. You know, so there's no way for any major project, right? $1 million, even $100,000. Usually, you're gonna go get some financing. You know, you can. There's only so much you want to have to come out of your pocket to pay for stuff up front. You want to utilize some of your cash and then your good credit score, just like buying a house, to do, you know, a construction project. For something like GRUSA, we just came strictly out of our pockets. It's easy, you know, link up with people who, you know, can do the printing for you, people who can do the stitching for you, and then that type of thing can be more of a cash-oriented business where you just are kind of starting up with what you have. But for any project that's, you know, of scale, you're going to usually get financing. And so what I would suggest for any entrepreneur is to save their money, be judicious, try to attain some assets, because the bank is going to usually 9 times out of 10 collateralize something, right?
Okay. What's some assets, examples? I know car is one, house is one.
Yeah,
What's another
usually
one?
they want houses, you know what I mean, properties, 401ks, you know, those kind of things. Things that are real solid. Less the cars, more property. You know? Yeah, it's a really good thing to use as collateral in the bank. And you have to be careful with that. You know, being a homeowner, you don't want to lose your home trying to get a startup off the ground. So you need to make sure that you are meticulous about going over your numbers. You want to make sure that you have a contingency plan if your business doesn't work out the way that you think it is, because things can go wrong. As we found out in the great pandemic of 2020, some things can come from left field that will absolutely
destroy
flatline your business. And sometimes you can't avoid it. Sometimes you just need to think about an exit strategy and how to keep all your assets but pay off, you know what I mean, what you owe the bank. And, you know, if you have a good working relationship with those financial institutions, with those lending institutions, and they'll work with you on that kind of stuff.
Okay. You just killing these questions. We just
talking. We talking that talk. It's a great interview.
It is though. So if you had to tell somebody or describe Grand Rapids to somebody, what is the culture of Grand Rapids?
Yeah, I would say Grand Rapids is it's a big city that's growing with a small town mentality.
That's exactly how I said it.
That's how I would
I know
describe
people who come here all the time. They say it's boring here.
Yeah.
I talked to some lady, she's from a European country where it's like 24 hours. She came here, it's boring.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's growing. You gotta wait.
It's
you gotta
growing.
wait.
And if you're not down for the wait, I understand you leaving.
Yeah.
But there's so much opportunity here, because when you go to other cities and you evaluate what they have going on and what we can do here, I look at that as an opportunity. You know, I could have moved to New York City. My family's from New Jersey, New York area, tri-state area on my dad's side. They all came from New Orleans, but my dad's family moved out east. And I love New York. It's my favorite city in the world. But I would never be able to own the property I own, you know, in West Michigan. I would never be able to own that in New York City at my age. Maybe ever, you know, because of the cost, right?
Right.
So the cost of living is low enough for you to be able to take advantage and have real ownership. You know, even our bars, like, so we're the only African Americans with the liquor license business in downtown Grand Rapids, but we're also only African Americans with the liquor license business in downtown Muskegon. We'll never be able to do that in New York City, you know?
So it's kind of like a blue ocean market is what they call it.
Yeah, it's a blue ocean market. It's a great way to describe it. I mean, from real estate to tech, this is wide open. Detroit is still wide open. There's so many properties in Detroit. There's so many neighborhoods that need to be uplifted. There's so much recruitment going on for young entrepreneurs to come and help Detroit to be the global city that it already is, but to maximize its potential again in a new way. Muskegon the same way. Flint, there's opportunities to own, right? I prefer this type of community where you can build what you want to see. And I think if you have the stomach for it, and you can be patient, you can do things in Grand Rapids that will help to contribute to this city becoming world class. And it really, there is a DNA here for entrepreneurship. You look at Mr. Van Andel, Mr. DeVos, two of the most prominent names, the Meyer family, which is probably, you know, one of the most wealthy and prosperous families out of the entire state of Michigan. They built family-owned businesses. Like, to this day, you know what I mean? These are family-owned businesses that became billion-dollar corporations, and they invested back into the city. That is, we might not agree with everybody, and, you know, everybody has different politics, but one thing you can't take away from, you know, the people who contributed to Grand Rapids is that they were effective in, you know, kind of uplifting the city and creating something. And there's no reason why we can't do that on Franklin and Eastern. There's no reason why we can't do that on Lafayette and Cass and Hall and, you know, all over the city. Granville Avenue. There's so much opportunity. You just have to get your mind right, get your ducats in order, and know that you're going to be up against a fight, because they're not used to people like yourself and myself walking in there demanding, you know what I mean, that we get financed for a project that's bigger than what people may have even dreamed about, you know, that maybe they've even never thought about. And they definitely don't expect it from people with our profile. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So,
100%.
you know, you have to not take no for an answer around here. And if Tupac has this great quote about, you know, about people coming in and, you know, you're knocking on the door first because you're hungry, you want to eat, and then you're beating on the door with the rhythmic drum, you know, the African rhythmic drum, and then after that you're like, nah, we're coming in your windows, you know. My approach with everything in Grand Rapids has always been like, if the opportunities are not going to come my way, I'm going to take them. So whether I'm coming with the ski mask, you know what I mean, or I'm coming in with the suit as a gentleman, I'm going to get it done. And that's how I've been able to be effective in all things around the city, because things don't move fast. It's slow as molasses, and people will doubt you, and they will, you know, we have this culture called West Michigan nice, so they'll be nice about putting you on the shelf or putting you on ice for the longest amount of time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not with that. You know, I want to get to the business that I'm after. I'm going to find a way to get it done. You know, there's more than one way to skin a cat, you know, so I in certain situations, in order to get opportunities, if I had to be adversarial, I was adversarial. If I could be a diplomat, you know, and make good relationships in the traditional way, I did that as well. You know, I'm not opposed to using whatever means, or as Malcolm X would say, by any means necessary to get to our goal. And I think what brought me to entrepreneurship, all that nonprofit stuff is cool, but a lot of the problems that we really want to solve in the community, they come from being in business. They come from creating economic vibrancy. It comes from, you know, being solvent as a community and owning properties in our own neighborhoods. You know what I mean? That ownership part is key. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to own, though. You can own your own home and invest. You know, you just putting your money into Bitcoin from your job could have netted you a gazillion dollars, you know what I'm saying, in the last 2 years or so. You know, Coinbase, there's so many different investments to make. So it doesn't have to be from the entrepreneurial angle, it can be from the investor angle as well. And you're getting that money from working your job, from working your 9 to 5. But at the end of the day, we need to have a conscience about what we want to do with our money once we get it. You know, once there is some prosperity, how do we want to create the opportunities in the pipeline for the next generation? And so me and my business partner, AJ Hills, that's why we've been heavily invested in an organization that we co-founded called the Midwest Tech Project. And it's all about getting people into the tech talent pipeline. It's all about making sure, you know, you can start up the next atomic object or the open systems technologies, you know, or be a part of, you know, have a contract with Spectrum Health from an IT perspective, from a coding perspective, because coding is a new manufacturing. That's a way for people to be gainfully employed. So as I'm thinking about things and I'm doing my business, I'm also thinking about solutions to the problems that we have in the community. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw you a nice, easy one.
Yeah.
You go out to eat all the time?
Do I go out to eat? Yeah, I go out to eat too much probably, so man, I need to get in the gym a little more.
Favorite breakfast spot?
Favorite breakfast spot? I gotta go with Uptown. I'm gonna go with Wolfgang's. I'm a Wolfgang's guy. Yeah, Wolfgang's is my top.
Turn some heads with that one.
Yeah, Wolfgang's is my top, and then I like Matchbox. But I grew up on Sherman, so you know Sherman, Bemis, Dunham, you know, Wealthy. That's where I spent my time at.
I'm gonna have to say Sundance.
Sundance is good. I'm downtown, so our bar is actually right across the street from there.
Oh, okay.
That parking lot right there.
Yeah.
That's where Ambiance is at. It's a little blue awning right there to the left. Yeah, that's the entrance to our bar. I'll take you down there. You have to come out to the grand opening soon, though.
I have to.
Like 6 weeks.
I'm telling you, that party was lit. Y'all gotta pull up.
Yeah, pull up for sure.
Favorite Mexican spot?
Favorite Mexican spot? I'll tell you my old one was Little Mexico over here on the west side. They've been closed now for a while though, but when I was coming up, I went to Catholic school, St. Andrews downtown, and one of the owners, his daughter went to school with me, so I used to go to Little Mexico all the time. That was my favorite back in the day. But my homegirl Paula has a spot over here on the west side, and I'm forgetting the name right now, but it's good. Check it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
Yeah. What else you got for me?
Were you at the riots? Were you around during the riots? Rosa Parks Circle,
were you
downtown?
Yeah, you know, actually I came down during the riots because they were trying to throw a trash can through our front window. And we have like almost $1 million invested in this building.
I can't do that.
So I'm watching it. I'm watching it about 11:59, and I see kids trying. And then my friend has a condo over there, like right across the street from where we're at, and he was like, yeah, he ran outside and was yelling, "No, don't do that! It's a black-owned business. It's a black-owned business." But it was chaos down there because right where my bar is at, they blew up 5 cop cars. That's where those cop cars were on fire. So my office is right up there across the street, and then our bar is like right down there on Pearl in Ottawa. And yeah, I saw some kids trying to, throw the trash cans through the front door, but we have a really thick front door. And then when as I was leaving out, I saw that they had set the cop cars on fire, the trucks, the SUVs, right in front of our space, and all 5 of them blew up. And then when I got over there, the state troopers were already there, so they wouldn't let me go check it out. They had the gun. They, were clearing stuff out. So of course they were like, they couldn't tell. I had a mask on because it was the height of COVID, and so they didn't know I was the owner. They didn't let me get close enough. So I don't blame them at all. But the next morning we found that they had taken a mannequin out of one of our neighbors' shops. There's a wedding shop that's around the corner from us in the same big building, because our building where our bar is at it's a city block. And so there's a wedding shop, and they taken a mannequin and set it on fire and tried to throw it through our window. So we took some damage in the riots, but not like everybody else. They didn't get in there. Our windows, I think, got broke due to the explosions. So we had a little bit of damage, glass, stuff we swept up, boarded up, you know what I mean, the bar, and then our insurance took care of it.
Okay. Well, good thing it wasn't like Portland. They got messed up.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Nah, it was, you know, it was, I'm glad that nobody got hurt. You know, I'm glad that nobody severely got hurt here in Grand Rapids.
I was down there during the whole Rosa Parks circle before it blew up to a riot. It was halfway decent at first.
When it was just a peaceful protest kind of.
No, it wasn't peaceful protest.
It wasn't peaceful. It wasn't peaceful. Okay.
Everybody came down. Half people were there just to be there. Yeah. The other half actually care. Yeah. You got the signs up. You got people flicking off the police. Yeah. You got preachers trying to preach the word. Then you got another dude come on talk about, nah, we got to keep doing this. We got to keep blowing stuff up. So it's like, it's everybody's 50-50. Don't nobody really know what they standing for. And I'm just like, hold up, this don't even feel right.
I'll tell you what though, man. Grand Rapids has a bad track record when it comes to race relations, and police and community relations. And so we're lucky as a community that it wasn't worse. Yeah. I'm be honest. Like, there's a lot of people who stayed home that were in the neighborhoods that are really affected by not just how the police, you know, deal with things, but also, you know, how the systems work against us, that didn't come out there, that really would have made it a different type of riot. You know, that was really the light version of a riot. And we're very fortunate. And so I think all city leaders, and you know who you are, and I'm friends with some of you guys, and some of you guys, I think you need to do a better job. You're failing us. But the real deal is we're very lucky and fortunate that that was the extent of it.
I just feel as though it was, like you said, a light riot. Yeah. It was kind of a trend because you scroll on social media, everybody's rioting. Yeah. When at the end of the day, the best decision would have been to just actually stay together, actually talk about investing and doing what it needs to be done to actually grow the community. Because that riot did nothing. It didn't solve anything because we're still talking about it. Last interview I did with the guy outside, he's still saying Black Lives Matter, but now instead of a whole community out still behind him, it was just him and his friends.
I'm gonna say this though, I wrestle with this because obviously, man, I had some friends who like lost their shirts and lost their businesses, and it cost them a ton of money. And I could have lost a whole bunch of money due to the riots. But honestly, America has to reckon with the fact that, you know, still to this day, the double standard for justice, and then the double standard within systems, and how systemic oppression has been allowed to fester. I mean, really, it's the great Achilles heel. It's the great weakness of our country. The fact that
it'll ever go away?
I don't know if it'll ever go away, but I do think with younger generations, people are searching for more understanding, and then also the access to information is enlightening people. So it's not cool to be ignorant like it once was. And then it's almost impossible to not be faced with injustice now. You know, back when, you know, our elders were growing up, right? Like, this stuff was really more isolated. You know, things weren't going viral in 2 minutes. So now when something happens, people can see it all at once. You know, television is one of the great revolutionary tools that helped to enhance
and connect people.
Well, connect people, but it enhanced the civil rights movement, because when they saw Dr. King go to, you know, these places in the deep south, and they're peaceful protesting, and then you see the dogs unleashed and the water hoses and the police come over and beat people with billy clubs, you could no longer ignore how that was terrorism. Like, you could no longer ignore how horrific racism was and how it was playing itself out, you know. And now we have even more access through our phones, through these cameras, and through these social media platforms, where people who thought that we were over-exaggerating about police brutality, they know it's real. You know what I mean? This man, you know, kept his foot on, you know, his neck. You know what I mean? Kept his knee on his neck for so long, you know? So, and that's not the first time it happened. It happened to Eric Gardner in Staten Island, New York, you know? So, and that was on camera, I Can't Breathe. That was the first I Can't Breathe. And yeah, man, so now it's real. I think the younger generations are closer together. Hip hop has done a lot to bring the younger generation, like music always, like Motown did that kind of stuff initially.
Like I definitely think it's gonna go away.
But hip hop has done a lot to bring cultures together. Like people's idols now are, Kanye West. They look up to Yeezy. From all cultures. All backgrounds. Respect what Kanye has contributed as an artist. So that has changed the game a lot. It's changed the game a lot, and things like having President Obama come into office. There's been a lot of change, but the problem is at the core the systems haven't changed, and that's why you see people with so much.
Well, how do we get the systems to change?
Because
I don't think the people are the same people. I think people are more close together. How do we get the system to change?
Well, we have to change it. It's on us. Responsibility is mine and yours.
Well, do I become a judge? Do I become a lawyer? Do I become a police officer? How do I do it?
We need people becoming judges, lawyers, and police officers, but then we also need our entrepreneurial community to weaponize our resources, our money, right? So if a certain banking institution isn't supporting minority entrepreneurship, we don't need to bank there.
Okay.
What are you doing to support women and minority entrepreneurship? If that's not happening, then you don't deserve our dollars. And the same for businesses, And I'm not into cancel culture, but I'm talking about leveraging. I'm talking about leveraging what you have, weaponizing what you have to create fair circumstances. All we want, and a lot of people, who are not from the black community or Hispanic community, they get this twisted. All people of color are looking for is their rightful opportunity. They want the fair shake. They want what, Dr. King was talking about in my favorite speech of his, not the I Have a Dream speech, but the mountaintop speech. We want we want America to be true to what they said on paper, which is having equal opportunity, to pursue happiness, right? To pursue what's rightfully ours, our destiny. And as long as these systems are in place that, systemically hold us back, right? That exclude us from those opportunities, we're gonna have to fight. And so we need to be prepared for that. So the change comes from us speaking up against injustice. The change comes from us investing in our historical institutions like the NAACP and Urban League that advocate on our behalf. The change comes from you becoming a millionaire and then finding a way to strategically give back to the schools that you went to, right? And making sure that education is top notch for people of color, because a lot of the stuff that we are gonna have to do, we have to do it ourselves. One of my favorite movies, a Martin Scorsese movie. You should watch it if you haven't. He's got a lot of great movies. Goodfellas is top of the list. Casino is top of the list. One of my favorite ones, more recent, over 10 years old now, is The Departed. And at the beginning of The Departed, they depict the riots that happened out in Boston when they were desegregating the schools. I think it was like the late 60s, early 70s, something like that. But he says, Frank Costello, the mob boss in that one, he says, nobody gives it to you, you have to take it. And I think our people, need to tap in with the fact that we have to take the opportunities. That it's not gonna come easy, that we are gonna be discriminated against, and that we have to overcome that anyway. But if you think about it, man, we've already overcome so much, right? It was a point in our history where our ancestors were getting killed for being literate, for knowing how to read. You were getting whooped for that. There was a point when you were being denied college just based on the access, denied the access based on the color of your skin. My grandmother wanted to be a doctor. She was top tier in her high school class here in West Michigan. Was denied being a nurse for a long time because of the color of her skin, overqualified. You understand what I'm saying? And had people from administration say you will never rise in the medical field as a black person, but they didn't say as a black person. You understand what I'm saying? Right. So that's just my grandmother. She's 88, but she's still alive. So we're not that far removed from that. So the fact that hip hop has been one of those catalysts that's shown us you can do whatever you want. I look at what P. Diddy has done, owning a television network with Revolt, and him being one of our primary influences with the Spirits, with Ciroc and what he's done there. I look at what my favorite rapper has always been Nas from Queensbridge Projects, and he has the venture capital firm Queensbridge Venture Partners, where he's invested in cryptocurrency, but he's invested in some of the most prolific new tech startups that have turned into these giant unicorns. bro, sky's the limit, like Biggie said. You know, like we can do anything, and we don't have to be a rapper, we don't have to be an athlete to attain the success. But we do have to be extremely strategic, and we do have to have mental toughness. And that's one thing I'm concerned about with the generation coming up, is that you're not mentally tough enough to deal with the fact that you're gonna be challenged at every turn. It's not gonna get easier. And as you can see, it's been so topsy-turvy, even in the last 20 years. I'm only in my 30s, but in the last 20 years, when you look at it, we had an economic crisis that almost flatline the banking industry.
Not built like you guys, but we have more ideas because we're all connected. We're gonna have tons of ideas.
You're artistically free.
Yeah, to do whatever.
But the toughness is gonna have to come into play because you're in a global competition. The people, the young kids that are coming up from China, man, they're tough. And they're coming from a situation where you have to be in order to succeed. There isn't a yellow brick road paved for them. A lot of the generation coming up from the United States, regardless of background, you know what I mean, and ethnicity, has been coddled. You know, they say that the soccer moms, you know, now you see the fruits of all that. And so everybody wants these participation trophies, and man, life is hard, man. So I worry about the mental health because the lack of toughness, you know, not that mental health issues aren't real, but I just see that when things aren't going young people's way who are coming up now, they get really discouraged, and some of them get in some dark places. And so we all have to like combat that. We have to work as a community to support mental health so that those things don't dominate. But we also have to know that, man, we've got a challenging times ahead of us. You know, some of the decisions that, you know, your generation is gonna have to make are gonna be the decisions that, you know, the world is gonna be
upside down.
Upside down, man. There's just more power in everything. I think even in cancel culture, you learn like,
if I say the wrong thing, I'm done.
You're done. But there's such a mob mentality on the internet.
I don't get on Twitter no more. That was my favorite app too. I just can't do it.
How are you doing it? You got a platform. You're not on Twitter. You got to.
I had to take a second off, bro.
I understand.
Because like you said, mob mentality. If one person says it, and then many people like it and retweet it, it must be true. But if you go back to the book, it's not true.
And then it's not true. And then you gotta.
Now you gotta explain yourself. Now you got a million people coming at you. I'm like, bro, I just tweeted something because I was bored. I'm on break at work.
Exactly. You gotta be careful, man. That's all. The social media etiquette, all that stuff is gonna be a part of the training, and should be a part of the training now for moving forward. But deeper questions than that are coming before your generation, like where science is at now. You know how robots are becoming more, and technology is becoming more integrated in humanity. Like, these are real conversations that ethically you guys are going to be challenged with. And it's deep, man. It's deep. It's deep. So if we're not mentally tough and prepared, then everything hangs in the balance.
I got a question for you. We're talking about mental health. Talk about mental health as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, man, you know, I'm not the best mental health guy because I was raised by Generation X. So, I mean, my parents are baby boomers, but the people who I looked up to were all in Generation X. And that generation really didn't talk about mental health too much. Okay. And so where I'm at, where I fall within it as a millennial, I came from the school that you have to be focused, you have to have tunnel vision, and you have to put the work in, and you might not make a lot of friends, you know, and I come from a neighborhood where, you know, somebody tried to bully me, we had to fight it out. You know, it just is what it is. You know, there's times I had 2 or 3 fights coming off the bus on the way home because I had a uniform on because I went to Catholic school downtown, Grand Rapids. And it made me who I am. It gave me great character, you know, the things that I saw, the things that, you know, I experienced and went through. So it made me equipped. But it also made me more callous, is a good word, to the mental health situation. And I think what I've had to learn, I could speak more to my journey of evolution. I had to learn that mental health is so important, man. You have to take care of yourself. You have to be able to take a reprieve. That's one thing. Take a break. You know, sometimes you got to put this stuff down, you know what I mean, and just get some rest and not deal with your phone and your social media.
Have to.
And you just got to recharge. If you don't do that, then not only will you be mentally, you know, scarred or, you know, be in a bad place, but your health also can suffer. And that's something that you don't want. So as far as being mentally healthy, it's just important to do the things that you need to do to recharge. It's important that you know, have people who are speaking life into you. You know, your inner circle is so crucial to your mental health, in my opinion. People who are going to tell you, hey, maybe this isn't working, but that's okay. We're going to figure something out. But don't get so discouraged that you're in a dark place, you know? So those are some of the things I've learned. And I've learned to become more sensitive to mental health, because I can honestly say,
this generation, we definitely got a lot more. Because I'll say this, we have a lot of stimulants, right? You got your phone coming at you, you're in school, you got people coming at you, then you got how you feel coming at you, then you got your parents coming at you. And it's just so many things pulling your attention away from yourself. You don't have time to come back into yourself.
And then how do you even know yourself with that? See, you know, when
Instagram tell you what you tweet?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I got my first cell phone, or I got one when I was like in the 8th grade that I found in the neighborhood, and I was lit. But like, everybody didn't have cell phones back then. I'm talking about, this is one of the old joints, you know what I'm saying? So,
you know, kids that don't break?
Nah, it was older than that even. Like, it was like somebody's, it was like a flip, but it was the big, it wasn't the big, like, I'm not that old, you know, the big joints, they had the brick phones in the 80s, it wasn't that. But it was like a flip, but it was like dense. So that was like the first phone I had. Then I had, my first phone was like a little Verizon joint when I was in high school. But that was like the era when we were the first ones where everybody started having cell phones. We were the first era to, you know, be that, you know. And I couldn't even imagine having social media at that time. I couldn't even imagine.
No, it's fun, but it's toxic. It's fun, but it's toxic.
Because how do you know yourself when you're constantly looking at
other stuff
and what you think you might want to be, you know what I'm saying? And you don't know who you are.
So many things pulling your attention.
Streaming, constant, you know, because I can find myself all the time, like Instagram, Twitter less, Instagram more for business, and Facebook for business, because Facebook is like where everybody lives at. It's the platform where you can sell to your grandmother and your parents and, you know,
your normal crowd.
Teenagers and stuff like that. So Facebook is like the entire community. Instagram is like that niche. You gotta be on Instagram. Like when I meet a new entrepreneur, I first go to their Instagram before I go to their website or anything like that. I want to see how their company and their brand is curated. But I can't imagine being, you know, you guys' age and having to deal with that kind of stuff, you know. And I've always been a person with high kind of self-image. I've always believed in myself. I probably would have been cool, but I had to discover myself in the community for real, with real situations. And I wonder how I would have navigated that virtual world.
Hip hop. You went through hip hop, and then you just you're still been the same person, I believe. You would have found it through hip hop.
Hip hop was, but hip hop has changed a lot, you know. So
are you a fan of new hip hop?
I'm a fan of hip hop, period. I'm a fan of
Are you a fan of Grand Rapids hip hop?
I'm a big fan of Grand Rapids hip hop.
Favorite artist from Grand Rapids?
Willie the Kid. Yeah, no question. Willie the Kid. That's my business partner too.
Only answer.
Yeah, that's the only answer. Willie the Kid. I got others that I love, you know.
Name a few others. I'm also a music producer. Put me on.
Who else do I love? Right now I love what AGO is doing. Shout out to those guys.
AGO.
Yeah, Sango is
Sango, I heard Sango.
Masterful producer. Did almost all of Bryson Tiller's album. He's got gold and platinum plaques. He was at the party the other night that you were at. So I'm surprised that Seventh didn't introduce you to him, but I like all those guys. Shout out to Seventh, AIM, Waldo, the whole AGO crew, Juice and Savon, all those guys. Love what they're doing. Tai Chi from around the neighborhood where I grew up at, Wealthy Street, amazing lyricist. Tech Togo. It's so many. I'll get in trouble.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, so many. Speedy, all these guys are coming with stuff. Cheesy Scott's from the neighborhood, making great music. You know what I mean? That's current, doing this thing. It's a lot of artists. I know I'm gonna get killed for shouting out some and not, you know, shouting out others. But Grand Rapids has always had a whole bunch of talent. The key is, you know, people being able to get out and get record deals and stuff like that. And what I really appreciate about my bro and business partner Willie, because he brought me down to Atlanta. I mean, he signed with DJ Drama and Atlantic Records and all that good stuff, and put me with DJ Drama. DJ Drama ended up becoming, you know, one of my big bros and mentoring me to the Atlanta scene and stuff. So I've been around that stuff, and it was great times for me when I was probably about your age. You know, when I went down, it was the BMF era that everybody's talking about. That 50 Cent is making the the movie, you know, I was making the series about now. That's when I was going down to Atlanta. I was, 19, 20 years old. So good times, man. But I love hip hop. Love hip hop.
Last question.
Yeah,
Just a big question. How can we make Grand Rapids a better place?
Yeah, Grand Rapids, everybody just continuing to contribute in the way that they see fit. You know, you have to find your niche and then own it and then create. You know, I think Grand Rapids is a blank canvas still, even with the buildings that we have and, you know, some of the stuff that's been going on, the awesome and amazing energy that we've seen in the last 10 years. There's still so much room for creators. Start off by laying that foundation and then figure out how to monetize it. Okay. You know, I want all of my creatives, you don't have to be entrepreneurs, but I want you to at least think entrepreneurial so that you see some of the fruits of your labor. So if you're an artist, I will be really looking forward to seeing people take advantage of knowing their worth and then figuring out the different avenues by which to get paid to contribute that. And I've been seeing it more and more. Muralists never got paid in 1995, and you know what I mean. These times, like they were doing that stuff just for the love, just like hip hop. You asked me about hip hop, and I love it so much because, you know, when it started, it came out of the park. It came from the Mecca. It came from New York City. It was our expression. It was the expression of poor people, black and brown, who probably couldn't afford all the instruments, but had a voice. And the thing about it that was so cool at that time, and particularly in the 80s and, you know, the 90s, is that it was all about keeping it real. It was all about being your authentic self and talking about the realities going on in your community. Now it's a little bit more commercial. It's a little bit more, you got universal themes that are going on. So you can listen to a record now and not know that somebody is from New Orleans necessarily, or you can't tell if they're from New Orleans or Houston or LA, you know what I mean? Because the same auto-tune, same this and that. When hip hop first started, you knew, oh, that sounds like Harlem right there. That sounds like Brooklyn. That sounds like Queens. That sounds like, you know, even when Master P and them first came out, that was not only New Orleans, but that was the Calio projects, you know. We love that, you know what I'm saying? And I think Grand Rapids is in a unique place because the expression is just now being celebrated, whereas other communities have had these, you know, cultural, artistic movements and moments for years and years and years. We're just having our moments now. Not only are we having our cultural and artistic, you know, movement, but we're having our grassroots entrepreneurship movement, and that's super exciting, because that's always been the background of the city, but now the younger generation is getting into it, and we do things a little bit different. So Grand Rapids is kind of a sleepy city, and that's because not enough of the younger generation has been able to put our fingerprints on what makes things go. So when you ask about the parties we throw, usually we're throwing them because it makes sense, because we have a spirits brand and we need to promote our new products and stuff like that. It's a great way to bring people together in the network, but it's also a great way to get people to get familiar with our new products. But it's also bringing those different entrepreneurs and those creators together in the same house, under the same roof, to do new business, to figure out how this techie can collaborate with this muralist and make something beautiful that the city of Grand Rapids has never seen before. And I think we're having a moment. So everybody who's about that, it's good times to be in GR. You know, if there aren't cool parties, throw them. You know what I mean? Set up an entertainment company and start taking your events to different parts of the city. You know, if you're a techie, you know, connect with the venture capitals that we have in town. We have a lot of money. We have more billionaires here per capita than most places in the country.
Wait. Say that again?
We have more billionaires per capita here in the city, in the Grand Rapids area, than a lot of places around the country.
Are they hiding?
No, they're not hiding, man. Their names are on all the buildings around here, man. Like, you know them. You know the names.
Huh.
They're here. Yeah, man. I think Meyer.
You make me want to be passionate about this.
I think
place.
Meyer
You do a great job with that.
I think Meyer made like 20 billion. They had one of their best years in the pandemic. They made like 20 billion during the pandemic, something like that. 20 billion. Yeah. Fortune 500 companies all around here. you know, and then people who are outside of the Fortune 500 but are still in that billionaire bracket who still walk around and have offices downtown and invest in the city. The question is, how do we bridge the gap between the billionaire, right, and yourself and myself? And so we've just been aggressive about going and pursuing the opportunities.
What's the gap?
Well, the gap is getting money out the doors. How do we get that investment flowing? By what way? What is the tool? What is the mechanism to connect young entrepreneurs with great ideas with resources? And then there's also a gap on the nonprofit side. How do we connect the nonprofits who are really organic and do real work with the indigenous community, right? They're indigenous to the community. How do we connect them with the foundations and the philanthropic organizations that give out millions of dollars so that they can really make change in the neighborhoods that need it? To me, those are the two main gaps as far as getting dollars out the door. And then the problem solving that really needs to take place to address the disparities are getting more people into entrepreneurship and then getting more people gainfully employed, meaning they can't be working just in the McDonald's and in the service industry jobs, you know, at Myers pushing the carts and and no disrespect, those are all great jobs and hardworking people work those. But we need more people from our communities getting off into robotics engineering, automation, you know, the jobs of the future. That's how you can feed your family. That's how you can, you know, get the type of dollars to be able to invest in the next cryptocurrency that's going to be hot, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, and we just got to figure out how we can work together so that all communities can rise and blossom, you know, in the city.
You just killed it.
Thank you, man.
You just killed it.
I appreciate you. It's an honor being on this platform, and you know, you come from a family with real legacy, you know, real legacy here in the city. So I'm honored by the invitation, and I'm happy to have been able to have this conversation with you.
Appreciate it, man. That's all, folks. Jonathan Jelks. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week.